Everybody, it's Monday, October 7th, 2024. Welcome to the NFL Fantasy Football Show presented by Uber Eats. Get game day deals all season long. It's me, your man, MG Marcus Grant, joined by Michael F. Florio and Laquan Jones. And we are all victims of stupid losses this week. Fellas, we collectively went 0-3 with our NFL teams. All three were losses that I'm sure we're going to sit back and kick ourselves. Not that we're kicking ourselves. We had nothing to do with it. But or look back and look as missed opportunities, I think, for our respective teams. Florio, I know you have long been on the Sean McDermott has to go train. Laquana, you're not on the Sean McVay has to go train, are you?
Oh, absolutely not. And Sean, we trust forever. Hopefully he could stick around for another 10 years.
All right. I don't know that I'm definitely not on the fire Kyle Shanahan train, but sometimes he makes it really hard. I'll just say that it's really frustrating sometimes watching a Kyle Shanahan coach team. Anyway, we'll try to get to some other things that are less stupid over the course of this show. Have our biggest takeaways from week 5. We have our waiver wire look and guys that maybe we're cool with now. After some struggles to start the season, they came around and maybe things are okay. But first, let's get started with some fantasy headlines, and just one headline at the moment, and that is in Cleveland, where after the Browns lost to the Washington Commanders, Kevin Stefanski stepped to the microphone and said, "We are not changing QBs." In my head, it was Leonardo DiCaprio from The Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not bleeping leaving. Was sort of the way I took this one. But Florio, I mean, look, we all looked at this past week and we said if there was ever a week for Deshaun Watson and the passing game to get going, it was against this Commanders secondary. He goes 15 of 28 for 125. Did have the one touchdown, but it was a disaster if you watched it. I mean, at this point, if this continues on this way, can we consistently trust any Browns pass catchers with Watson at quarterback?
The only one I think you can is Amari Cooper. And even with Amari Cooper, you know how it's going to look. It's going to be very boom or bust. Like yesterday, 10 points. I was disappointed because of the matchup, but you look at the usage, it's still off the charts. 10 targets. He's still every week one of the top 5 wide receivers in air yards. So I get it. I know people are probably like annoyed hearing this, but the big weeks are going to come and the usage is too good, I think. Like, I have Amari Cooper on a lot of teams, and there's maybe one where I feel confident in my other options to get away from him. And most of them, I'm like, I have to roll the dice on him. But this is a crazy stat from yesterday. Jameis Winston threw one pass. He converted more third downs than Deshaun Watson. Like, Deshaun Watson has this Browns offense up there with some of the worst offenses in NFL history. And we were joking in text yesterday. Kevin Stefanski, like, hates his life right now. Like, he not want to continue starting Deshaun Watson. I guarantee you that. But they are in too deep contract-wise with him, so they're just going to sacrifice this season, I guess.
I mean, I'm looking, Laquan, at the upcoming schedule. So next week they're on the road at Philadelphia, and maybe we trust them there. But after that, you know, they've got the Bengals, who might be a decent matchup. But then they have the Ravens, the Chargers, the Saints, the Steelers, the Broncos, the Steelers again, the Chiefs. We're running out of places to start Amari Cooper, aren't we?
Yeah, it's looking like real nasty work here over there in Cleveland. It's more so you're looking at all the pieces around them. Like, you have David Njoku back, you have Jerry Jeudy, who's a secondary weapon to Amari Cooper, and we're still getting this finished product. I will give him a little bit of slack, being that the O-line is not healthy when you have both tackles that are your starters that are out with injuries, but still no excuse, man, when you have the talent as Amari Cooper and Jerry Jeudy. Like, you really can't trust these guys moving forward with this schedule looking real wicked, you know, with the upcoming weeks. So me, for fantasy, I'm staying away unless it's David Njoku, because the tight end fantasy streets are starting to get better as the weeks can go on. Thankfully, he's back, so it gives him a nice end zone target that he can possibly find the end zone. But I'm screaming for Jameis Winston, man. I don't know about you guys, but I need me some Winston to eat some W's on camera again for him to be front and center. Like, we need some Winston in our life right now.
I mean, the fantasy streets are clamoring for Jameis Winston, but it appears that the Browns are not ready to make that move. It's going to be, and by the way, I love the fact that you're like, hey, I want David Njoku, not because you think he's going to play well or that the matchups are good, but you're like, fantasy tight end's terrible, so let's just get one more guy in there in the mix that we
I'm
could
literally
possibly.
desperate for anybody that can play football, and it's a tight end.
Yeah, that's where we are. So yeah, go ahead.
I was one thing that goes under the radar, I think, with this Browns team is like Jerome Ford should be one we could trust, but now they're using 3 running backs as well. Like it's a nightmare.
Yes.
And Nick Chubb is on the horizon
Mhm.
too. So that's something to
Wow.
keep in mind as well. All right. So while the Browns are out here playing fantasy Arthur Fleck, let's turn our attention to some fantasy heroes presented by Subway. Top scorers heading into Monday Night Football. Kirk Cousins, 34.36 points. That was the first thing we saw from week 5. And so far it has held up. Tank Bigsby. Ooh, we have to talk about that in just a little bit. Nearly 26 points for him, 101 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, also 28 receiving yards. Jamar Chase doing Jamar Chase things. And he's always good for, it seems like, 140-point game a season. 10 catches, $193, and 2 tutties. Tucker Kraft, who a lot of us were promoting as a sleeper tight end this week, he went off, 4 catches, 88 yards, 2 touchdowns, nearly 25 points for him. Pair of kickers got you 16, Younghoe Koo and Chase McLaughlin, and 3 different defenses with 16 points, the Broncos, the Giants, and the Vikings. So that's a look at the general state of the fantasy hero-dom for you, Laquan. Anybody in particular you want to shout out this week?
I got to give a huge shout out to Trey Sermon because losing my 1 and 2 running backs in first round and second round with one on bye with Jahmyr Gibbs and then Jonathan Taylor with the ankle injury. And fresh off the wire, this guy comes in and puts up 18 fantasy points. Now, it might not have been the prettiest production day out of him, 10 carries, 38 yards on the ground and a TD, but it's more so having the career high and 6 targets and 6 catches is what really helped this points get to where it was with 18. So it's like big shout out to him because I was absolutely terrified. I'm pretty sure other fantasy managers were terrified having him in starting lineups because he hasn't had the best history, in the NFL bouncing from team to team. So for him to come in, show up and show out, fresh off the wire, helping me possibly get this dub. Shout out, Monday Night Football. Hopefully he don't come back. But listen, Trey Sermon, big shout out, man, because the running backs right now, they're falling each and every week with injuries. So, shout out to him, man, again, of showing up and showing out in week 5.
Yeah, you got to love when the sleeper running backs step up and take advantage of a good matchup. It's one thing to have a good matchup. It's another thing to actually take advantage of it, and he did that this week. So it's funny that Florio, a guy named Kraft, hangs out with cheeseheads. It almost seems like it was destined to be, huh?
Yeah, and what I love about this is, to Laquan's point from earlier, like tight end is pretty bad right now. So to get someone like Tucker Kraft, who 2 big games in a row, and what stands out to me even more than the fact that he had 88 yards and 2 touchdowns and was the tight end 1 on the week with nearly 25 fantasy points, is that 5 targets. He was 3rd on the Packers in targets, and that was something people were questioning coming into this game. I know Romeo Doubs was out. Things seem a little weird with him right now. Christian Watson is clearly banged up. So I don't see how, if you have Tucker Kraft right now, how you could be like, oh, this was just a flash in the pan. Like, maybe, but given the state of tight end, given the offense and the quarterback that he is tied to and the way that he has been performing, I think you have to feel pretty good about Tucker Kraft, and I would keep riding the hot hand moving forward.
Yeah, I don't think this is a flash in the pan. You sort of look at the metrics between he and Luke Musgrave, and I know Musgrave's banged up, but when they were both healthy on the field together, it was Kraft that was getting a lot of the opportunities in the passing game. He looks like the clear tight end 1 in Green Bay, and he showed it this past week. Yeah, he looked good for sure. For me, it's from Ramondre Stevenson. And I know the chatter during the week was Antonio Gibson getting the start because Stevenson was putting the ball on the ground. Even he admitted, look, I've dropped the ball 4 times. This is going to happen. I still just believe that overall, Stevenson was the better running back in New England. And that is what showed on Sunday against the Dolphins. Now, mind you, the Patriots offense is still a mess, and it's hard to count on anybody consistently there. But the snaps were split pretty much evenly. I think Gibson had 1 more than Stevenson did, and that was it. But Stevenson had more touches, 12 carries, 89 yards, and a touchdown. Also 4 catches for 3 yards. So, but still getting the opportunities there in that offense. Antonio Gibson had been explosive, had been more of a big play guy, but it also felt like that was going to be very volatile. So hopefully this sort of rights the ship in New England. We get back to Stevenson as the lead running back for the Patriots. Very interesting to see what happens at quarterback in the near future if we get Drake May, if they stay with Jacoby Brissett. But at least for now, still holding on to the fact that Ramondre Stevenson is RB1 for New England. There you go. Those are our fantasy heroes. Let's dive into some bigger things, kind of a macro look at week 5. And Laquan, what was one of the things you took away from what you saw?
Tank Bixby is here, man. He's finally arrived, and it was good to see him actually show up and show out with his opportunities and put up big fantasy points. I mean, in the last 3 games, you have seen his workload increase from snaps, from rushes, from total touches and routes in general, where he's been taking advantage of all these opportunities they've been giving him. You know, Travis Etienne is banged up with a shoulder injury, but you just love to see with the proper matchup, he's taking the opportunity. Look at him go to the house with this. He even pointed back at the guy. Like, he is on a full confidence run. And I think this is what the coaching staff have been trying to get out of him. They've been trying to build on his confidence and try to get him more opportunities, because we all knew the talent was there, and this is where he's thriving at. And they can stack the box against him all they want. He averaged 15.6 yards per carry in stack boxes last game. So we're looking at a guy that could be a potential threat to give this offense a spark on the run game, because Travis Etienne, with him banged up, he has not been getting it done as an efficient running back out of that backfield. He's more so the guy that they could rely on out of the backfield with the pass catching. So love the matchup that he has coming up as well against the Bears next week, where they have allowed 90-plus scrimmage yards to notable starting running backs so far this season. You have Tony Pollard, who put up 18 fantasy points, Jonathan Taylor with 26, Kyron Williams with 20, and then Chuba Hubbard, my guy, with 17.5. So the matchup is there for him to go up again, to show up and show out with these opportunities.
Yeah, looking like you're making a strong case for most improved player in the NFL this year, like looking at this year versus last year. Floria, got one where I'm sure this hits a little bit close to home for you.
Yeah, I think there might be cause for concern with Josh Allen. And when I say that, I put some of the blame on Josh Allen, but not most of it, because yes, he did not play great yesterday. I will admit that. He missed some throws, particularly he had Dalton Kincaid with a step in the middle of the field, downfield, and he just underthrew it. I know that's one he wishes he could have back, but more concerning than that is I'm afraid that the book might be out on how to guard this Bills offense, because I know Khalil Shakir was out yesterday, and he is someone that I've pounded the table for. You see the Kincaid throw right there, by the way. But yeah, I was pounding the table and stuff for Kincaid, for Shakir. If your offense looks completely broken without Khalil Shakir, that is a problem. And what the Texans did yesterday, they sold out. They brought pressure, which made Josh Allen have to make very quick decisions. He was running for his life most of the time. Even his crazy plays where he runs to the sideline and heaves it downfield was not working, because no one was able to create any sort of separation. The Bills need a wide receiver desperately. It is clearly not working. Their rebuilt O-line cannot handle the pressure that was being thrown at them. And you look at Josh Allen's season right now, 2 games over 30 fantasy points, 3 under 15. It's 2 of them in single digits. It's very boomer bust right now. He's still running, but we knew he wasn't going to have 15 rushing touchdowns like he did last season. And right now, the Bills' passing attack looks kind of broken. And I don't know where we all want Dalton Kincaid on the field more. He's getting blown up every time they try to throw a screen because he can't block. I don't know where the answers come from right now. This is both as a fan of the Bills and of Josh Allen, and as someone who ranked Josh Allen very highly in fantasy coming into this year. I've defended him for a very long time. This is the most worried I've ever been about this offense.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things, sort of like Kansas City. The quarterback is good. The situation has some question marks around it, and we have to sort of adjust in fantasy. Speaking of quarterbacks that are sort of a question mark, I know Anthony Richardson is the QB1 in Indianapolis. I know that there's not really a quarterback competition, but are we sure we don't want Anthony Richardson to maybe just chill for a little bit longer and get Joe Flacco some more opportunities? I mean, we look at this passing game and the way it has kicked off the last couple of weeks with Flacco under center. Alec Pierce right now is a top 15 wide receiver in fantasy, in part because of what Joe Flacco is doing. Michael Pittman has had back-to-back double-digit games. Didn't have a ton of yards yesterday, but did get in the end zone. Josh Downs, who's now back and healthy, starting to get into the mix a little bit more. Anthony Richardson, a supreme talent who I think is still developing, but also a guy who really is struggling with the passing game, and it is bringing down the rest of the pass catchers in that Indianapolis offense. So I know when he's healthy, he's going to be back in there as the starter. But man, if we could just get a little bit more Joe Flacco, I think we'd feel a lot better about our shares of the Indianapolis passing game. All right, we will dive into the waiver wire. Also figure out if maybe we're cool with some guys who struggled the first month of the season. That's next on the NFL Fantasy Football Show. Live from London, Trevor Lawrence and the Jags take on Caleb Williams and the Bears on NFL Network. Rise, shine, and watch Sunday, October 13th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, only on NFL Network and NFL Plus. Subscription required for NFL Plus. Time now for the waiver wire, presented by YouTube TV. Florio, who should we be targeting on free agency in Week 6?
Your boy Caleb Williams, who continues, who looked the best he's looked all year, I would say, yesterday. Geno Smith continues to come through, even without throwing a bunch of touchdowns. He ran for over 70 yards. Kirk Cousins, I know he's on a bye, but you saw what he did on Thursday. Tank Bigsby, who Laquan spoke up. Tyrone Tracy Jr., who played really well without Singletary. Alexander Madison, just because of volume. Trey Sermon, in case Jonathan Taylor is out again next week. Jalen Wright, who got a lot of volume. And then Roshan Johnson for the Bears. Some pass catchers. Please pick up Darnell Mooney already. Alan Lazard continues to be a thing for the Jets. Wan'Dale Robinson needs to be picked up as well. Josh Downs, Jordan Whittington, Alec Pierce, and Tutu Atwell, a couple of Colts and Rams there. And then this is a good week for tight ends if you need one off the waiver wire. Tucker Kraft is obviously a must-add, but Tyler Conklin in a good matchup next week against the Bills. And then Zach Ertz, who continues to just be a safe, steady floor option at a position that doesn't really have a whole lot of that.
Yeah, I like Zach Ertz earlier in the season. I think at some point he kind of fades out, but right now he seems like he's a very viable option. But let's get to Caleb Williams, because he is going to be playing in London, really starting to come together. I mean, Laquan, just a little peek behind the curtain. I'm putting together my list of sleepers for the week. Caleb is top of the list. Are we starting to buy into the number one overall pick a little more now?
Yeah, because he's taking advantage of the matchups as well. You build off of the Rams game, you build off of our bad secondary, but you go into last week and go in there and go out there and ball out. I mean, the last 2 weeks, he's averaging 17.5 fantasy points. This is something where he can build off of. And going with the Jags, this is a layup matchup for him, in my opinion, based on how he's playing. And if they get that run game going, how they did last game, they will be able to get Caleb into play action, be able to air it out and giving him time. This O-line is trying their best to protect him, but if he's getting the ball out fast, and I swear he's probably the best in the game to keep the plays alive. Look at here, he's just scanning left and right. Being able to have that time and make a decision is going to be very important for him. So he's a hot pickup off the waiver wire if you're looking for a quarterback right now.
Yeah, it's just amazing. When they give him time, he makes plays. Kind of weird how that happens. Also, by the way, had a rushing touchdown called back.
Exactly what I was just about to say. Like, his day looks completely different, even better if that stands.
Yeah, confidence. You're building the confidence, and this is the matchups you need.
100%. Meanwhile, Josh Downs, you mentioned him, Florio, as well. I know I talked about Joe Flacco at quarterback and what this means. I like Josh Downs. It just seems, obviously he was hurt at the start of the year, but now it looks like he's in a role that we can feel comfortable with him now.
Yeah, 12 targets, 9 catches, 69 yards. The only thing is, it's what you were saying earlier, Marcus. This is with Joe Flacco, who we know can get the ball, go through his progressions quickly, get the ball to the open guy, stuff like that. When it's Anthony Richardson and his accuracy issues, if it's Anthony Richardson next week against the Titans, I'm already planning on writing Pittman and Downs as sits for that week, because it's easy to get sucked into what they've done with Joe Flacco, but it's all going to change when Anthony Richardson comes back. Do you guys still think, though, like what Downs has done, you could just trust him no matter who the quarterback is, or no?
Nah.
I want to say yes, but I can't really say yes right now. I just, don't get me wrong. When Richardson comes back, if I've got Downs, I'm probably plugging him into a lineup, but I'm also sweating it out if that's what happens. So
you guys had the exact same reaction at the exact same time. That was perfect.
Yeah, I call that the Marge Simpson. Yeah, I don't know. So basically, we're saying we're not 100% cool with the Colts passing game, but we have some guys that maybe we are cool with now. So I'm just gonna hit you guys on each one of these a little bit. I mean, Garrett Wilson finally had a Garrett Wilson type game against the Minnesota Vikings in a loss. All it took, Laquan, was 22 targets for him to get 13 catches, a $101 and a touchdown. But are we cool with Garrett Wilson now?
No. I'm still not cool. I love that he got 22 targets, but at the end of the day, it needs to be consistent because we know Aaron Rodgers is still going to target Allen Lazard in areas that matter the most. You look at this touchdown, Garrett Wilson got loose on a linebacker. Any other time, you have Allen Lazard being his first read looking at in that red zone area. So this game, I feel like it was an outlier, being that, they needed to get something going. This was a dire need that they need to get back in the game and score. So therefore, I'm not too sure we can get these wide receiver one consistent weeks out of Garrett Wilson, because there's times where Aaron Rodgers just straight up ignores Garrett Wilson. I don't know what that's about. I don't know what's going on there. But again, this is part of the Jersey Shore storyline. We're just going to have to figure out at the end of the season.
It's Nathaniel Hackett's fault.
Yeah, I mean,
like other offenses draw up plays to get their guys away from their best player, away from the defensive attention. Hackett's like, all right, we want you to take the attention so we could get the other. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I think he's a sell high right now.
I'm trying to figure out which characters are which, who's Ron, who's Sam, who's Paulie. It's crazy over there now what's going on, but I guess we'll figure it out.
Stay tuned as we figure it out, though, a little bit later on. Florio, DeAndre Swift, back-to-back good games for him. He goes for 73 and a touchdown on the ground, another 47 receiving. Are we cool now?
Yeah. I think we are. I know the first 2 weeks were pretty bad, but the last two have been awesome. And the thing is the volume. That's what I care about, and that's what you should care about for fantasy. 21 carries. And then he's getting highly, I know only 2 targets yesterday, but 47 passing yards. Let's not forget that last week, in week 4, he led them in carries, rushing yards, targets, catches, and receiving yards. So this sort of volume that he is getting, he was one of 2 or 3 running backs this week to touch the ball, to have 20 carries or more. So that sort of volume, I just don't think you can ignore. I don't think he's going to put up 20 fantasy points every week because of the Bears O-line. There'll be some down games, but if Caleb is starting to feel comfortable and that passing game is starting to get going, it's only going to help create more running lanes and open stuff up for DeAndre Swift. And what I love, they rewarded him with a touchdown because he went the entire drive on one of their drives, got them down to the half yard, had a touchdown called back, then got down to the half yard line. Then they brought in Roshan. The second time, they were like, all right, Swift, you've earned this one. And he got the goal line carry. And if he's getting even some of those, I think he becomes a running back that you can just start each week.
That's nice to see that he's back. I didn't know what to think of the Bears' running game, but appears like DeAndre Swift has sort of solidified himself. Still like Roshan Johnson, though, to get some opportunities there.
They played him like they paid him.
Yeah, exactly. For me, with the Ravens tight ends, I don't know if I'm cool with the Baltimore Ravens tight ends because, 3 of them performed yesterday, but in varying degrees, right? I mean, it was Isaiah Likely who had the most fantasy points. It was Charlie Kohler who had the most receiving yards. Mark Andrews had his best fantasy game of the year. Even that was just 9.5 points. It's still too spread out. There's still too many options there, and it's still very inconsistent when they get them the ball. Lamar Jackson with 348 and 4 touchdowns is nice. You can't count on that every single week. But it is time for Moments We Love, presented by Barefoot Wine. The Vikings defense has been on a pretty good run when it comes to celebrations, and they had another one in London over the weekend after picking off Aaron Rodgers. They do the celebration from the Parent Trap. Fellas, your thoughts on this celebration?
I love this. I mean, it's so random at that. Who watched this movie recently? It's the Butler and Lindsay Lohan doing the handshake. I forgot all about this movie even existing.
I've never seen the movie, so when I saw the celebration, I was like, that's cool. They must have practiced this all week. But then I had no idea where it was from or anything like that.
It's such a deep cut,
cool, cool moment for them. I mean, they're having a lot of fun, and they should be right now.
Yeah, I can't remember I don't know if it was Byron Murphy or someone else was saying it's one of my favorite movies. And I watched it the week before since it takes place in London. So I knew we were going to London. I watched it ahead of time. And it just, in a moment of inspiration, struck them that that's what they should do as their celebration.
Wow. Wait. So that wasn't pre-planned? They just thought of it.
I
in
mean,
the
I think they
moment.
planned it during the week. They knew they were going to London. The movie takes place in
Okay.
London.
If they
So they're
scored,
like, all right,
yeah.
let's put this together in case
I
we
was
make
like,
a
if
play.
they
So shout
knew
out
how
to
to
them.
do the whole thing on the
That would have been
fly, I
amazing.
would have. Yeah.
That's really
That would have
your
been
favorite
Selly of the
movie.
year. Selly of the
Yeah.
year, hands down, if they just did it like on the fly for sure. So, all right. So that's a good way to love. That's a good thing to love. It's a good way to finish out the show. Appreciate you hanging out with us. That is it. We are done. We love you hanging out with the NFL Fantasy Football Show presented by Uber Eats. You know the drill. Tell two friends to tell two friends. Rate, review, and remember, you know you're an adult when you get excited to just go home. Be safe, take care of yourselves, and we will talk to you tomorrow.